Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air on St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Brian Moline.
I have both liberal and conservative students.
I'm a little bit more in the middle on things.
A lot of these young people only care about the presidential elections.
Well, first of all, I really believe in the no taxation without representation. It's one of our biggest points.
But I also, on the other hand, do not think that just because something could be a little difficult, that it should be an excuse to nullify concerned citizens' right to participate civically.
Some students in Missouri want to lower the voting age to 16 for school board and municipal elections. Vote 16 Mo is a state campaign taking up this issue, and the group hopes voters will get to weigh in on it in November 2024. Joining me to talk about it is DJ Yearwood, senior at William Chrisman High School in Independence, Missouri, and campaign director at Vote 16 Mo. DJ, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you for having me on. It means a lot to, be able to reach out to the community.
Absolutely. Also joining us, St. Louis High School student Lexi Chrysler, Vote 16 Mo's assistant campaign director. Lexi, glad to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
DJ, let's start with you. Your high school has implemented a model of learning that emphasizes real-world application of class content, and this is what inspired the Vote 16 Mo initiative. Can you tell us a little bit about how this campaign began?
Yeah, so this campaign began because we, back in Jackson County, operate a youth union organization that sets up these strategies for youth advocacy and provides a platform for youth across the state to advocate for their best interests. And this campaign is derived from the best interests of those youth advocates. Youth advocates believe that this campaign will promote their needs and their concerns in their community to the statewide stage and to a higher platform in their community. And so this campaign was derived from the interests of youth.
So this just got started in March. So what are you doing right now? How are you trying to get the word out about this?
Yeah, so since March, we have done press launches, interviews just like this. We hold Vote 16 Mo community forums on the 16th of every month in different parts of the state. And so we're spending a lot of time educating the electorate. As you probably know, and as some of the audience members know, this is not just a through-and-through issue. This is an issue that has brought along with it some controversy. And, and it's a topic that people just have to learn about and learn the importance of. So we're spending our time really educating the electorate on this issue, educating our elected officials on this issue, and spreading awareness about the amount of youth who actually want and need this to be done.
And how did you get into this issue personally?
Yeah, so I am the executive director of the Youth Empowerment Initiative, which is that local nonprofit that I was talking about at home in Kansas City. And I have a passion for youth advocacy. I think that young people have a unique perspective about the day-to-day lives, whether it's in their school or community or of their peers, that should be elevated and should be represented in policies at all levels of government. In fact, we are doing some lobby days down here in D.C. this week on behalf of our organization. So these youth issues are important to me, and I think that doing justice by all community members, especially those contributing members on their electoral rights, should be something that we really, as a whole society, should focus on.
And Lexi, what makes this campaign relevant for young people across the state and not just maybe one or two counties with the biggest metropolitan areas?
Well, first of all, I really believe in the no taxation without representation. It's one of our biggest points. I think we have a huge stake, and we also do pay taxes as people who can have jobs and can, own a car in a way. So I think that we do have a big stake in what we can say things. Sorry, let me reword this. I think we have a big stake in what there is to say, but I just don't think we necessarily have that voice yet.
Sure. DJ, you're working with both Democratic and Republican Missouri lawmakers to introduce legislation to lower the voting age in the next session. What makes this Vote 16 Mo initiative nonpartisan in your view?
Right. This initiative is nonpartisan strictly because this is not for or against any one political party. It will benefit the electorate as a whole. Both parties will gain from having a more diverse electorate with more diverse perspectives and opinions. We know that our country thrives when the most people are involved and engaged, when the most perspectives are put up to the spotlight. And any legislator who understands this would understand the importance of this initiative and how nonpartisan it is. There is no indication that this initiative at the local and school board level with the intent of, expanding our electorate and engaging the most possible, there's no indication that it would benefit one party over the other in some substantial way. It's more about how we're creating a better educated electorate for the future of our country and for the future of any and all political parties.
I think it's probably also worth noting that city council and school board elections, which is what we'd be looking to have this initiative for, those are nonpartisan elections as well. Some people are unsure about supporting the campaign. One example is Jay Ashcroft, Missouri's Secretary of State, said he has some hesitation about the level of responsibility of 16 and 17 years old. Here's what he told St. Louis Public Radio reporter Lily Halloran.
I think there are a lot of people that say, wait a minute, if you're a 16-year-old, do you really have the life experience that we would want someone to have to be making decisions about the future of our country? I think it's reasonable to say, we want you to be a little bit older, we want you to have a little bit more the level of responsibility that other people have, and to have that life experience before your vote matters in the same way as everyone else's does.
Yeah, DJ, what's your response to this concern that 16 and 17-year-olds don't have enough life experience to vote?
First of all, I would not say that is a reasonable concern, simply on the basis of how much more life experience do you need to have to understand how your school board is impacting you? How much more than an everyday daily experience do you need to have over the course of 11 to 12 years, from kindergarten up to 11th and 12th grade? How much more life experience do you need to have to understand how your school district's policies affect you? I think that students in an independent and unique manner are more inclined to understand how directly the school district's policies and enforcement of those policies impact them than any other community member can. Teachers in a unique and independent manner have a different ability to understand, how the district asks them to enforce those policies along with administration. But the impact on students is completely unique and independent from, say somebody who doesn't attend the school district or doesn't have a student in the district, or doesn't work in the school district, but they are still able to vote in some school board elections. And so that would be my response to that.
I'd like to bring another voice into this conversation now. Jeff Chazen is a government teacher in the Parkway School District, where he's worked for more than 2 decades. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
As a civics teacher, you teach a wide range of grades. What's it like teaching government courses to students who are not yet able to vote?
It does make it a little bit more difficult in the sense that my job becomes much more easier if I can make it relevant to their lives. Certainly, if this initiative were to pass, having students being able to vote right away, as opposed to me having to say, hey, in a year or two, this is something that you can look forward to doing. So the fact that they would be able to vote right away would just make what I'm doing more relevant to their everyday lives and make what we're learning more meaningful and get them probably more interested in the political process in general.
Yeah, voter turnout in the country has recently gone up quite a bit, but historically, compared to many other countries, the United States lags behind on this measure. Has that been the case for young voters as well?
Statistically, yes, that they are much lower than their more elderly voters are concerned. And so hopefully maybe this will get them interested and getting into voting at an earlier age, the fact that they would be in high school when they would be able to vote, and oftentimes they might even be able to vote at the high school that they're attending, would make it a lot more easier for them to do, as opposed to college students who would have to come back to vote. And I think that's one of the major reasons why we see the 18 to 24-year-olds just lower percentage-wise. So hopefully maybe the high school element might be able to increase that a little bit more.
Sure. DJ said in an answer to an earlier question that young people are not guaranteed to vote a certain way, but I think there's a lot of perception that young people vote for Democrats more than Republicans. Can you tell us anything about what the data might say about that?
Statistically, are younger people more liberal? Yes, but I also think it just depends on where you live. In the Parkway School District and at Parkway West, where I'm at, we have a pretty diverse climate. So I have both liberal and conservative students, and I think that as was stated earlier, I think the impact would be spread out over all ideologies, not just one over the other.
Sure. I'm speaking with Jeff Chazen. He's a government teacher in the Parkway School District. Also, Lexley Chrysler, a high school student and Vote 16 Mo's assistant campaign director, and DJ Yearwood, senior at William Chrisman High School in Independence, Missouri, and campaign director of Vote 16 Mo. DJ, strengthening civics education and application is another reason for this campaign. What can you tell us about that?
So I can tell you that lowering the voting age in such a small but impactful manner would completely reshape the way that Missouri does civics education. And one thing that I really liked that Jeff had just mentioned was the way that, he as a civics teacher would be able to make this content more relevant. All of us on this call would probably know that we don't spend a lot of time on local government, and we don't spend a lot of time on voting when it comes to, our civics classes. It's usually about one to 2 units for each. And so by applying this learning by doing concept that is widely embraced by all of Missouri's leading universities, this is something that will be able to make relevant to the students at hand and, of course, increase civic engagement. In the same way that Jeff said, I wholeheartedly agree with absolutely everything Jeff said. Because of the way that we teach it, we are actually discouraging voters by asking them to hold on to that information for another 2 years.
Lexi, another reason that you're advocating for this change is because you say young people have a stake in the game, especially when it comes to school board elections. As a student, what do you see happening in school boards that young people want to be able to influence with a voting ballot?
Well, for example, in Independence, Missouri, which is the school district that DJ goes to, they actually not that long ago switched from a 5-day school week to a 4-day school week. And while there were times that were open for these kids to give their opinions in town halls and things like that, I think if they really had a voice in government more than just speaking, because let's be honest here, most of the time when it comes to those town halls, it seems like they have their minds made up pretty much, right? So I think if we really had the ability to actually vote and be involved in the civic process, I think we would have had a better outcome for what students would have actually wanted and what students actually need. And we are the ones who know better than anyone because we are them themselves.
Jeff, the amount of local politics taught in your civics class, DJ alluded to that a little bit. Is that something that's your choice, or is there some kind of a mandate in terms of what you're expected to cover in your class throughout the year?
Mandate-wise, we are required to give a Missouri Constitution test that students must pass. As far as the local government goes, though, that is the only real requirement. And so it is correct that percentage-wise, local politics takes up a very small percentage of the classroom curriculum compared to the federal government and more just political science stuff in general.
Sure. Especially here in the last few years, since the pandemic, it seems, there's been a significant increase in parent and student interest in school board elections and decisions. Why do you think that is?
Well, I certainly think that COVID definitely had a major impact in just how important school boards are, whether you're talking about masks or no masks, whether you're talking about social distancing, whether you're talking about allowing extracurriculars to happen. A lot of those decisions were made at the school board level and impacted students directly. And so I see the connection between school board elections and, students impact of those decisions and why I think they have a fair argument as to they should have a say in what's going on, because those decisions are directly impacting their education.
Yeah, you're part of the National Education Association, Jeff, and you regularly speak with and interview school board candidates for the Parkway District. To what extent do you see school board candidates and members who are elected officials considering student perspectives?
I do think that they try to take in all of the stakeholders, whether they're talking about teachers or administrators or families. That's who they are working for, and so I do think that they try to take it in. Certainly, though, if they can't vote, then that is a hinder to that process. So, with this initiative, I think they would become more powerful stakeholders in the school board elections and maybe have a seat at the table more than they would before this.
DJ, Lexi talked about this a minute ago, but your school district recently decided to move to a 4-day school week. How were students involved in that decision, or were they involved at all?
So, yeah, I actually wanted to mention that students directly were not involved in anything other than a multi-choice survey that was sent out via our emails that was optional for us to complete, in which we did not even get a comment section on that survey. And so we were very loosely involved. Parents were able to attend the school board meetings on that topic, but it was a pretty rushed through process. There were students who support the 4-day school week, and there were students who do not support the 4-day school week, but the district didn't hear either way directly from students other than the short survey. And so that was something that made students concerned, the fact that this school board could single-handedly switch up the entire structure of students' lives when it comes to sports, when it comes to work, when it comes to family lives. The fact that this district can entirely restructure everyone's lives that attends that school without hearing directly from students, hearing testimony from students on how this would impact them in a negative or beneficial way, that's concerning. And I think that, like Jeff said, I have met school board members who are really passionate about hearing from students and, will take the time to meet with students. But then I've also met probably more school board members who would rather hear from parents and rather hear from those who can obviously vote for them. And I know that school districts around this state make it particularly hard for students to get engaged in school board meetings. And so I think that this process would completely change on the fact that these students would now have this new ability to vote for school board members. And I think that it would also go to turnout, right? Students would be then incentivized to engage with those elected leaders just as much as the elected leaders would be incentivized to engage with the students. So it's more about incorporating all the perspectives, especially on issues like what happened in Independence.
Lexi, it can be the case sometimes that young people take their political cues and beliefs from their parents, and that they themselves maybe don't develop as strong a political beliefs until they become young adults. But I'm curious, what's a formative experience in your life that's influenced how you think about politics and government?
Well, I think that has been definitely a big point that kids take from their parents, their political views. But just personally, I disagree with that. My parents are, my father mostly, he is quite right-wing man. I am a little bit different. I'm a little bit more in the middle on things. I've noticed that I take a lot of my education through school and personal experiences as well, but also things that I've been learning online and just all across my life. It has made me believe things that are completely different than him on certain subjects. So I think that everything that I've learned over the course of my life definitely changes from what my parents learned in their life. I think there's a big difference there.
Jeff, part of the argument for lowering the age of voting is to kind of ease young people into the voting process and hopefully retain them. What do you think about that? Will involving younger people in politics earlier maybe help increase voter turnout when they become adults?
I do think so, and especially, again, at the high school level, where most of the time they're getting this education either at the freshman level or as in Parkway at the junior level. But again, that delay in being able to go out and then utilize that information and those activities does put a hamper on things. Whereas, and again, I like the element that we're just going to do this with the local level, just because that's where our students, I think, are most tapped in and have the greatest impact is at the school and local levels. I think it's a great introduction to the process. And I do think that because you can vote at the high school a lot of times where you attend, that will make it even that much easier to go ahead and participate.
Sure. DJ, there are a handful of counties like Tacoma Park in Maryland that have successfully passed legislation to lower the voting age. In other places like Oakland, California, young people were successful in getting a law passed, but then implementation stalled. If this were to pass here in Missouri, what do you think implementation might look like?
Yeah, so I actually met with the members of the Missouri Association of County Election Authorities. And one thing, that's what we did talk about. So I would take note that the organization has not come out in support of or against the effort. But if this were to pass, we would want to make sure that we implement it in a proper way and something that does not reflect what happened in the county in California, but more what happened in Tacoma Park, Maryland. So in our counties and under our state, we have the exact voting systems approved by our Secretary of State that would work for this process. I think that I'm not going to be the one to say that this would be something easy and simple to do. But I also, on the other hand, do not think that just because something could be a little difficult, that it should be an excuse to nullify concerned citizens' right to participate civically. I do think it's going to be some work, something new that's going to take some work, but we are willing to put the work forward on behalf of creating a better educated electorate. I think that we will have to keep different method of keeping 16 and 17-year-olds registered, and how the ballot process works. But as we work out those implementation processes, it's good to keep in mind that anyone who says that Missouri does not have the equipment necessary, it is not true. We do have the approved equipment necessary by the Secretary of State, the same one that Tacoma Park, Maryland uses.
Lexi, I'm curious how you're engaging with young people across the state of Missouri to try to get them on board with this initiative.
Well, we've done a number of things. One of the big things that we've been doing are those town halls on the 16th of every month. We did have one in Kansas City, but we've also been connecting with different organizations across the state. We did talk to a few in St. Louis and in the Kansas City area. We're trying to work our way out there a little bit more as well, and radio interviews as well, obviously.
Of course. Jeff, this is primarily a student-led initiative. What should adult voters consider if Vote 16 Mo makes it to the ballot by November? And I'm curious, what do you think the reception of this will be? Do you think a lot of folks would be in support of it?
I do think it would be a mixed crowd. As a parent, I definitely would want my children to be able to vote as soon as possible, just to, again, allow them to get that habit going at an earlier age. The fact that we are limiting it to nonpartisan elections, I think, is also a plus in the favor of, hey, this isn't gonna make things any more politically heated than things already are. And so I, as an adult, I think what's best for the community. And if we can get our younger people participating more in the political process, I don't really see a downside to that.
Sure. I think it's worth noting that just across the river in Illinois, 17-year-olds can already vote in primary elections if they would turn 18 by the time the general election rolls around. Have you heard anything about impacts of that particular initiative over across the river?
No, but I do know that, currently, even at most high schools, they do voter registrations at the schools. I know that our library at Parkway West, if you are going to be 18 by the next election, you can register to vote in our library. That's been going on for years and years. And at Parkway, we also do a lot of service learning projects where we will have students they'll actually be the poll workers, they'll work the polls, and so they see the process. They just can't participate in the process. And so, getting them to do that, I think, is just going to strengthen our community and country that much more.
DJ, I'm curious. I understand that you've registered people to vote, and what's that been like for you?
Yeah, so we have led registration initiatives, registration drives here in Kansas City on behalf of our organization, and really getting freshly 18-year-olds or 17-and-a-half-year-olds to participate in this has been refreshing for us, but also kind of challenging, right? Because they have to remember back to their government classes whenever they took it, sometimes between sophomore and junior year, on the process, right? And then what we've been doing recently was getting them engaged in the municipal election and the state election last year. A lot of these young people only care about the presidential elections between this 18 and 24-year-old demographic, and that's because that's the most in your face, right? That's the most widely known and in your face. And it's a true disservice to our community that we allow it to be that way, that we allow it to be such on a one-sided and so partisan basis. The fact that we'll be able to incorporate under this initiative nonpartisan elections and bring them to the forefront of voters' faces in such a local and impactful way will be much more beneficial to how many students are registered, how many students participate. And so I think that back to answer your question directly, challenging, but beneficial.
And Lexi, what are the next steps for Vote 16 Mo?
Well, I think for right now, it's just going to be to get the word out as much as possible and really try and get some support within our state legislator. Other than that, just trying to get as much education as possible on our initiatives.
Lexi Chrysler is Assistant Campaign Director for Vote 16 Mo, and she's a high school student here in St. Louis. DJ Yearwood is a senior at William Chrisman High School in Independence, Missouri, and Campaign Director of Vote 16 Mo. And Jeff Chazen is a high school government teacher at Parkway West High School. DJ, Lexi, Jeff, thanks so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us on.
Today's segment was produced by Aula Kuziz,
with audio engineering and podcast design by Aaron Dorr.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
St. Louis on the Air proudly supports local artists by using music from Life Creative Group.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations. And leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thanks.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.